Hey, what's up, people? Director Peoples checking in. Still kind of sick, but I'm on the up and up. I had an opportunity to kick it with Jordan, the player of Rezinoc Fenris of Gamma Haven, Ryan Quinn of Village, and soon to be Malos of Cawthane. Sounds like he's getting married. Soon to be Malos of Cawthane. But hey, if you want to, have a little back and forth chat, feel free to shoot us a message on our Anchor app and join the conversation. Till then, I don't know where you are, but where I am, it's really cloudy and storming, kind of relaxing. So sit back and listen to just another player in the universe discuss his character. That's what I like to hear from you guys. Your voices. Send them in. And we can talk about anything you want. Just send us a topic, and we'll take it from there. Rezinoc Fenris, Ryan Quinn, Malos of Cawthane, ladies and gentlemen.
Whoa, I'm in here twice.
It's funny because when I was interviewing Nam, she came in and it was two of her as well. She said the same thing.
We just
Rezinoc. What's up, man?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to this. Our last conversation was pretty good.
Yes. And that was before the finale, right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so for the players who don't know, this gentleman is the player of Rezinoc Fenris and Ryan Quinn in Village. So Rezinoc is in Gamma Haven, Ryan Quinn is in Village.
And soon to be Nick's Malos in Cawthane. Or Cawthane?
I think it's Cawthane.
Cawthane, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I pronounce it like 70 different ways a day.
How do you spell that? Malos.
Malos.
Okay. Is that another? Did you make that name the same way you made Rezinoc?
No, not from RuneScape. That one was off of a name generator, and I think it means death in some language or something.
Oh shit! I take it he's a bad guy.
She's not the nicest person. She's gonna end up being a shadow assassin that specializes in killing users of magism.
Oh yeah, I do remember you saying you were going to make somebody anti-magic.
What's funny about it is she utilizes it, so kind of probably gonna have to kill herself later on or something.
What have I been doing my whole life?
Right?
Hey,
she'll be like, I'm the last one.
Let me apologize. I have a really, really bad cold that just kind of came out of nowhere. So
don't even stress it, man.
Cool. I'm wondering how crazy I sound right now.
Nah, your voice is just deeper. I didn't think it was possible.
Talk like Ivan for the rest of the whole interview. All right. So for the players who don't know your characters, who's Rezinoc Fenris? What should they know about him?
Rez is a power-hungry fiend who doesn't know it yet, and he's willing to do what it takes to get what he wants. And as we found out last season in the finale, apparently he has a bloodlust mode where he just feels no worries about killing people. So watch out for that. Which is awesome, by the way. I love the fact that you put that in there.
Yeah. And that just stemmed from the fact you said. Do you recall what you said? Something along the lines of. Do you recall?
Yeah. So, are you talking about in accordance to how Bloodlust came about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was back when we were first, probably about midway when we first started talking. I pictured that Rezinoc probably had some kind of darkness within him. That as he got more excited and more into a fight, the more and more it came out, and it translated into a lust for power. And so the whole bloodlust thing to try to learn powers faster was just a perfect creation for that.
Rezinoc is really, really intelligent. That's what people forget because of how bubbly and childish he is. He's a young kid and excited, but they forget how smart he is.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets into those when he has his moments, he dehumanizes the person. It really becomes a science experiment to see what can bring out the best result, right?
Oh yeah, easily. We showed that in the very first Rezinoc solo episode, Legendary, when
Yes.
he was doing whatever it took to see what their powers were during the training course.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question, because obviously Deathtude knows what your abilities are. What do you think Deathtude wants with Rezinoc?
I think he wants to see how far he can push it, right? Because Rez, from what you've said, has a similar power set to Deathtude, but he can use the powers that he learns, and Deathtude can't. So I think that Deathtude sees Rezinoc as a student that he can push farther than the others, just because he understands him a little bit better. And I have a feeling he's going to try to use Rez against the Instigator and the Tank.
That's a solid theory right there.
Because, I mean, if the Instigator and Deathtude weren't seeing eye to eye, right, then Deathtude wants some control of the Tank. And what better than to create a monster that can utilize a bunch of various abilities.
So he's very useful, just based off of everything you're saying. When Six was killed, Nam said something along the lines of, she noticed that Deathtude didn't even really kill him.
No, he didn't. He's just like, well, Six is dead. He got his face blown in. And I was talking with, I think I was either talking with you or Nam, or hell, maybe if it's even Makai. I talked to so many people. But my theory was that Deathtude was teaching Nam how to use Six's cards, because he was planning on replacing Six at some point.
I think you might be right about that. And isn't it funny that Nam Ki is really good with cards? It's not one of her abilities. Well, kind of it is. She has. She's really finesse when it comes to cards.
She has tarot cards that she uses to try to keep herself calm.
And she has cardistry. So cardistry is, I guess when you can perform with cards, like for show, juggling, sleight of hand, stuff like that. So it's funny because she said that she wanted to kind of fall in with the crazy crowd, and just how she ended up with Deathtude was just coincidence.
I think it was perfect. Her and Drav, I listened to that fight scene 30 times, trying to capture all the little things that happened, and her and Drav flowed really well together after the combat started. Obviously in the beginning they were like, no, I want to swing at him first. No, I want to swing at him. And then after they got done bickering, they were an almost flawless team.
Yes. And I wanted to ask you what were your thoughts on that, because Drav is really tough. He's really, really tough. And literally you were just scratching the surface in the most literal sense. Those scales that he has.
Because Drav's thing is he has impenetrable scales, right? Or something pretty close to near impenetrable. What blew my mind was when Rez hit him hard enough to get through part of the scaling and see his healing factor kick in.
When you had hit Drav in the side, you had broke his armor, but the armor that he was actually wearing.
How did I see the healing factor then?
So you were doing damage, but you were just scratching the surface, and even that healed. So if you remember in the first scene when Drav was introduced, he was sparring with Nam, and his the nuclear radiation was actually eating away at his scales, if you recall. But his healing factor was kind of keeping up with. But I mentioned it just to show you that, or show the viewers that his scales do get scathed, but it's just the surface, and his healing factor is faster than the rate anyone could dig into it.
See, and that's what's really interesting about that is, so for Drav himself, and this is a good example of Rezinoc's power for the newer players. So Drav's healing itself might be a slower rate, but for Drav, it's pretty quick, right? And when you and I were talking about me getting healing factor, you were talking about how slow it was. And what that means to me is that since Rez isn't a natural carrier of it, he doesn't fully understand it enough to have it be able to keep up with the rate Drav's is. Which then goes to show what else you were talking about, where I might gain the core ability of a power, but it will never be as strong as its original counterpart.
Yeah, you totally understand. It's about, there's layers to it. The first layer is the mechanic. And that was me saying, okay, if you're gonna learn his power, if you're gonna take his power and try to make something with it, it's not gonna be just as great as it. It's gonna be different in a way, various capacities. That's the first layer. The second layer is then justifying it and wrapping that in a nice ball of explanation, like you just did. And this was just something that we came up with.
And what's cool about that too is,
you know what I mean?
The way that we had discussed it. And I know this is getting a little bit deeper into the mechanics part, but you and I, for everyone else listening, we're talking back and forth, trying to determine what I could and could not do. And my ideas are obviously always overpowered. It's how my brain thinks. And so we finally came to the agreement that I'll give you a combo that I want to try, and then you, from a narrative standpoint, can determine what that ability really does. And then you'll implement that, and then I can learn from it. That way you still have something within the story realm, and I'm still trying to combine something that's my own thought.
You remember the moment when you were covered in that red
you
energy?
mean when I went fucking psycho? Yes, the bloodlust.
Yes.
Like, and what? That was so cool because I've been having trouble forming perfect clones, right? And then bloodlust kicked in, and it's like Rezinoc's analytical power spiked to its near max, and I popped a perfect clone, and then melded with it, and then boom, my powers heightened. I was like, "What kind of shit did you just do, D?" You understand Rezinoc on the same level I do. And then you have your narrative overview to make him flow better with the story, which is why another thing you and I were talking about is I'm more than willing to let a little bit more go in his submissions, and then you can use him to your will on how to help best shape the story, because he is going to be a strong tool for you to meld the narrative.
So can you kind of explain that that kind of decision, like why that decision that you're making? Because to me, in my opinion, that is one of many ways to play the game. You can micromanage everything your character does, or you can do the key things that you want and kind of just like you said, leave some space for me to do what I can do. Why do you enjoy playing the game that way?
See, and this was a big decision for me because I like to micromanage, right? And it happened during one of your P&D casts, or maybe another anchor cast, where the finale, and how it was a way to check player egos. And you may not have had me in mind, but to me, I was like, he's absolutely right, because my ego was huge. Because I came into this thinking Rez was going to be some hyper badass who could just take everyone's powers and use them at will. And over this course of time, I'm realizing just how much our thought processes differ in different ways. And to me, it would be much more enjoyable to listen to how Rez does things instead of try to dictate it, because then it's a surprise to me, right? Like, I'm listening to P&D because it's an awesome narrative story, and I don't know what's going to happen. And so the decision to let you have more freedom with Rezinoc's actions is to surprise me, because when I'm surprised, I get real hype about it. Like the fight scene, because I don't even think I put that many fight moves. I put Rez was going to be very wary and defensive and try to see powers and keep himself safe. And then you having that freedom and that vagueness was able to create that amazing scene where Rezinoc did things I had never even dreamed of. Like, at one point, he dissipated into energy and, reappeared somewhere else. I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't even think about something like that. And so it's that surprise element of not knowing what's going to happen to my character that makes it even more exciting when the episodes come out.
Man, thanks, man. Yeah, hell yeah. I like to hear shit like that. That's exactly that feeling I was talking about, when the feeling of seeing something and then talking about it later with someone else. But in this situation, because it's your character, it's kind of like you're more invested in what happened. Like you said, you're on the edge of the seat because you don't know what happens. It's your character. It feels strange when you don't know what's supposed to happen or what's going to happen. You have an idea what you would like to happen. but it's that area where you're not sure if you won your role, and so far things are going your way.
Yeah.
I feel like those are the moments, right?
God.
Where you're like,
you're so right. Like, I was 2v1ing Nom and Drav, and I fucking killed 6 in like the first 30 seconds by blowing his face apart. And I was like, holy shit, I won my roles. And then the fight started going, and I'm like, all right, I lost some. Oh, I lost more. And I was like, nope, I lost. And I was like, and here's the thing too with letting go and letting the narrative take it is initially I was really upset, right, that I had gone down a rank and I'd been captured because, again, player ego. I'm like, what the fuck? I did amazing. I should have at least stayed the same rank. And I was like, but story-wise, it makes more sense that, in order to be captured by Deathtude and to survive the reset of the tank, that I lose, right? And so part of that decision too was to distance myself from caring so much about the ranking system, because RTX is superhero or superhuman, and I'm now below average or whatever. And after making the decision to let you run with it more, I realized that those rankings have a less meaning and impact to me. Like, it's like, okay, cool, I went down or I went up a rank, but I'll get it back eventually, right? And so that's why I was like, okay, I think I'm going to dive more into the story instead of trying to slam events to rank up faster.
Yes, yeah, because that's exactly it, man. Excuse me. There's multiple ways to play the game. You can be someone that focuses on ranks, but the ranks are only there for the narrative. I feel like narrative takes you farther faster. When you're controlling your character and making decisions that they would make for a purpose. That's why it's great to have the story phases there all the time now, because you can go up a rank just by beating a mission, but unless you're going to make something of that moment when you're winning, unless you're going to build your character and develop your character, those victories don't really mean anything, because by the time you meet someone, what really is going to matter is why you're crossing paths.
So my whole theory behind it was, I got caught by Deathtude, and he was somebody that I want to learn from, right? I was looking at the phase submission, and it said you have to use a story phase to escape. And I immediately was like, well, that's not happening. I'm not going to try to escape. I was like, I'm going to try to ally myself with Deathtude and learn as much as I can from him, right? And Rezinoc is a perfect example of how story phases are important, because, and again, for new players and even people that might have forgotten, Rezinoc can't develop his powers or even take in new powers unless he uses story phase, because that's when I can analyze the ability and try to come up with potential combos. So Rezinoc is going to be a story phase fiend.
That's strategy right there. With that said, do you have any advice for any of the incoming new players?
Like as far as submissions or just in general?
For Gamma Haven.
Setting. For Gamma Haven. Yeah, so some tips from me, and I'm a fairly new player myself. I think I'm maybe in 2 episodes. Is be really open to how D takes your character, because he's going to read your submission, he's going to think about it, and he's going to integrate it in a way that mostly gets you what you want, but also ties it really well into the story. And don't be super hung up on whether or not you lose a fight or a roll, because eventually, even, just from probability, you guys will continue to rank up. And it's really enjoyable when to let go of that feeling and that tension of, am I going to rank up or not? And just go with the flow. Because I found it to be way more enjoyable thinking about the game, knowing that whatever happens because it was meant to. So that's my biggest tip, is to just go with the flow and have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it's an interactive comic book.
Yes. Man, I can't wait till one day it's I have the motion comic thing going. That's something that I've always wanted to do for this, is to have a motion comic. Um, I have the tools. I just don't have the time. But eventually,
Isn't that the struggle for everything, man? You don't have the
it's
time.
so hard. It's so hard when you have the tools that you see them every day.
I'm excited though. You have a lot of plans, and especially with bringing on Slater as a director, like that was a huge move, and I think it was a good step in the right direction.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Let's take a step in the village direction. Ryan Quinn, the Wild Man. Solo series. We haven't had a chance to really talk about it. How do you feel about the outcome of that?
First off, naming my daughter Harley, I got that immediately, which was great, and I really didn't expect it to end the way it did. Right, like first off, seeing the body come out of the school, I'm like, well, there goes my daughter. I'm like, this is where it happens. And then she's okay, and I'm like, God, he's fucking with me. And so I'm like, okay, everything's fine. And then you cut back to the house, and everything's okay. And then you hear noise, and I'm picturing this in my head, and I see my daughter in the hallway, right? And then I hear the freak, the teacher. And the last thing that crosses my vision is the freak tearing into my daughter. And this is just me getting into my character, but that broke my heart, right? And I was instantly filled with sorrow and rage. And I'm really glad that Ryan fucked up the teacher, because that just was some sad justice. But like, that really hit me, because I told you that he took a vow of silence because one of the last things that he promised to his daughter was that she would always be okay, which I'm assuming happened in the downtime between the school and us getting home, right? Mm-hmm. And he wasn't able to keep that promise, and that really hit me right in the feels, because that made it so much more real as to why he would have taken that vow of silence, and to why he would feel protective of the younger girls or women in the settlement, honestly. And so I think you did really well with that.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And again, I really want the viewers to know that this all stems from the players and what they submit. And I feel like you said, it's at the end of the day, it's just a visual, interactive comic, but it's also your story that you're building. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of things. It's a mix of things. You kind of know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to unfold. That's why I have fun, because it's just like giving someone something and they're opening it up in front of you.
It's like a present on Christmas morning.
Yeah, when I get a submission, I feel like I'm unwrapping presents. Like I get to look into someone's imagination for every day. Like, that is an honor. It's just really fun. So what do you think? What do you think is happening? And that's really vague, right? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people are breathing, probably going to the bathroom, eating, drinking. I mean, that's my assumption, unless time stops.
Excuse me. What do you think is happening in the world right now?
Well, I think that with your death force submission creation, that we're all about to get fucked real hard. But I think that we are about to start experiencing the different creatures that are truly out there, that are more frightening than the freaks. Things that we do not understand. And a big starter is the tree spirits, right? Mm-hmm. We don't really understand those except Tao, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but in the last episode, you called him Tao Wang.
I did?
Yeah, at about 12 minutes and 55 seconds.
Wang Gang?
Yeah, Tao Wang. And I was like, wait, what? Isn't his name Tao Yang? He's like, nope, he said Tao Wang. So you might have to go back and listen to that, because that was a great moment. But just listening, and then the mist creeping under the door, and the banging on the door at the end, and Tao sprinkling herb on the ground, like it all indicates that there's about to be a war waged on not only us, but I'm guessing the rest of humanity on a scale that we've never seen. And it's going to be a crazy ride for our characters to try to survive it.
Yes, I agree. And it's what's even crazier is the fact that I'm hoping whatever it is not frightening.
Right, it's just some kind of like Jigglypuff walking through the door.
Yeah.
Just sings and blows everybody's faces apart.
I think the show would really tank after that.
Right, everyone's like, well, we got to make second characters. We got to make something that's deaf to try to block out Jigglypuff.
In regards to the freaks, though, I definitely would like to get some more built on them, some more a deeper look into the freaks. So, if you're listening, if you could go ahead and go into the world builder, the lore building, and add some things to the freaks. Add some things for the freaks, because I think Tao Yang. I'm like super conscious of it now. Tao Yang, he has information on the freaks, but he hasn't submitted it yet. But
well, dude, build out different ones, because you've given us a couple examples. You had the weird ass creature, or the teacher, I should say. There's the one that stomped in Danny's face. There's the one that I'm pretty sure you stole from Left 4 Dead, which was the charger that hit Ryan Quinn. The big one that just came burling at me and just picked me up like I was nothing. I was like, Jesus. I was like, that thing's huge. And then I'm assuming that we're gonna get something along the lines of hunters and boomers, different shit like that. That's just gonna take us by surprise. And what's cool is so as characters, right? They're gonna have to adapt, but it's really our job as players to help them down the road of adaptation with our submissions. Like, we have to think about each threat, and we have to think about how we're going to try to counter the threat. And a big thing that Earl does is always talk about, hey, this is what is probably going to happen. We need to try to strategize. And what that's going to eventually do is build a giant cohesion, and everyone's submissions are going to be covering some sort of area that somebody else's isn't. And that's going to be like one of the only ways that we survive the shit that's coming. Yeah,
man, you're right. That would be ideal, right? Everybody's kind of in sync. That would be the day. That would be really fun. Where you're just rolling on all cylinders. I think with the settlement building that we just added, now that you're all settled, it'll kind of get people to kind of think more about their character and what they can contribute if they have a place that they can call home, a room inside of the settlement.
Yep.
Really start kind of taking a closer look into their character, the introspective parts of their character. What would I hang up on this wall? Why would I hang up on this wall? Oh shit, because I'm known for this and that. I might be able to provide some things for the settlement because of the type of person that I am. Everybody is needed in some aspect.
Yeah, you got your warriors, your thinkers, your scavenger, your doctor. Like, everyone plays a vital part. Even though we have 3, 4, 5 warriors, like, they all specialize in different things in the ways that the players interpreted their skills. And so, I think it's going to be really big. Like, we're all trying to go against each other in Gamma Haven, and then Villager trying to bring us all together. So it's a really interesting dynamic in the mind.
Yeah. Harmony. Apart from Harmony, who else could you see Ryan becoming, friends with, becoming closer with?
I definitely think Deacon and Raven, and to an extent Tao, just because they're all protectors in a way, and Ryan really connects with that. Jack would be one that he's probably going to keep an eye out on. I love this scene where he takes her cigarette out of her mouth and puts it out as it's walking away to follow Harmony and Joe. And honestly, probably Bull, because Bull's a pretty big dude who can probably keep up on his own. and Ryan's going to respect that. I mean, honestly, Ryan's going to be someone who can get along with anyone on his end because he's not living for much, right? Like, his purpose in life is to try to survive and find out why his daughter had to die the way she did, right? And so the whole path along that doesn't matter. So he's not going to have any quarrels with anyone, really. And you portrayed it really well in the end of the last episode where everyone else was looking down at the ground, afraid to look up. And you're like, Ryan looks up because he doesn't care, and he finds Joe. And I was like, that's perfect, because Ryan literally has nothing to live for right now because his daughter's fucking dead. Right? And so he's being driven by some animalistic instinct because he doesn't shave, he has matted hair, he'll eventually bathe, maybe. Right? and so that really portrayed it well because he'll do what it takes to protect people. And I don't see him not getting along with very many people unless they do something to purposefully hurt someone in the group, right? Someone who betrays that trust factor.
Trust, love, friendship. Will Ryan ever pursue love again? Or, maybe, birth a new daughter?
Find out next time on The Village. Honestly, in this world, he probably wouldn't do it at all because, and I'm saying having children, not sleep with people. He probably wouldn't have another child at all because he wasn't even able to protect his when it was first going down and the world wasn't the hellhole it is right now. And so to him, carelessly bringing in another being would not sit right. Because he wouldn't be able to be guaranteed protecting an infant who can't even move and help itself.
That's a good way of thinking about it. It's got to be dangerous to bring, I always thought about that when watching The Walking Dead, to bring new life into a world like that. That's a big decision.
Oh, yeah, because the pregnant woman needs to make sure she has a good source of food and water. And when she's birthing, she's going to be screaming, which is going to attract zombies. And then raising a baby that you can't control. Like, you're on the highest alert 24/7. Especially if you're the father like Rick was, because he has more to lose if something were to happen to the mother and the baby.
This vow of silence, is that truly something that he's always going to abide by?
I'm thinking that it is, and this is up to you when it breaks. This is going to be a narrative choice for you. But I'm thinking that it's going to break when something big is going to happen and he can't relay it without speaking. I will, and whatever helps push the story along, I'll leave it up to you. But it'll be your decision when he breaks that. Because, like in the last episode, he didn't have to speak because him and Raven were communicating via hand signals. But what happens if there's a freak about to lunge on somebody, he's too far away, and nobody's looking at him? You can't give a hand signal to someone who's not looking. So at that moment, if it's a dire enough situation, I imagine he would shout. And if the situation really needed it, to speak. Or even if someone's dying, right? Or really injured and they're having a hard time, speak words of comfort. But it would be one of those dire situations before it would happen.
Yeah, that's kind of how I envisioned it too.
See, we're on the same page, man. I'm not even stressing it.
Hey, who do you see as leader for a village?
It's a loaded question. So both the people right now that have been spoken about, Earl and Deacon, are both friends who are part of GT. And I honestly think they would both make great leaders. One, Deacon, you've said multiple times, has shown through his action that he is a good leader. And Earl, you've said multiple times, would be a good leader because he has shown people that having faith can lead to great things. And honestly, in a time like this, faith is one of the only things people can count on, right? You have to have hope in something in order to push on and try to live in an environment like this. So and Earl's been extremely successful with the Almighty One. I don't know if he's rolling that 20s left and right, or if the narrative just makes it better for that. But he's been extremely reliable when it comes to praying and saying to have faith. So I honestly think it's going to be who can rally the most hope. And honestly, if it comes down to it, I don't see why Earl and Deacon cannot just be co-leaders, right? Earl can handle the faith side of things, and Deacon can handle the defenses and the militaristic side.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds, because I'm definitely going to give y'all the freedom to do whatever. Y'all don't even have to have a leader if y'all don't want. So
if it's not a singular leader, a council of some kind. Because here's the thing is, if you don't have a leading unit, chaos is going to erupt eventually, because everyone's going to want to go in a different direction. And the last thing that we need in an environment like this is chaos erupting and tearing the settlement apart, because the moment we split apart, we are much weaker.
Couldn't agree more. And I feel like that's going to be a big theme, and that's why I kind of started discussing bonds. Real quick, one last question. Between Ryan, Quinn, Malos, and Rezinoc, Fenris, if you could kind of tell us what we are going to expect to see from each of these characters going forward in the coming episodes.
So Ryan Quinn, we can look forward to seeing him try to assimilate more into the village and the settlement. That one's going to be a little bit more difficult via the whole vow of silence thing, but he'll find a way to do it, so we can see him interacting with people more. Nyx, when she comes out, Nyx Malos, she's going to be interesting, because depending on if all the submissions go through, she's going to be the princess of the Balcairn. I think it's what I named her race, and she's going to be someone who has shadow manipulation, or no, I changed it to like Master of Darkness or some shit like that. And so she's going to be able to utilize darkness in various forms, which is going to make her extremely dangerous, because she's going to be able to get wherever she wants to. And then she's also going to be a master assassin of, I call them magi, but people who use magism. And so she's going to be a dangerous threat to anyone who uses magic, in my mind, right? So we're going to kind of see her, how she develops in her personality and as well as her skill set. But Rezinoc, and I'm always gonna favor Rez, because he was my first. I love Rez, and you can tell from the conversations we have. I put way too much thought into everything Rez related. But I'm hoping that we can see Rezinoc start to develop himself and his powers, right? So Rez is he's very playful, and he can get serious, and he's intelligent, but we haven't really seen him show a human side as in caring for someone. And one thing in my submission was trying to develop a healing flame, right? And that's gonna be because he could just heal himself with healing factor, right? Like I could just make a little barrier around myself to heal with flames. But it's going to be more of something he can use on other people. Like Nam, for example, right? Like this is the perfect opportunity for Nam and Rez to connect, and for Rez to start forming GT. And so starting to think more about other people and opening up to being able to heal Nam from her internal injuries from the nuclear power that she has is going to be a huge step for him personally. And I'm hoping that he can learn a lot from Deathtude, and that Deathtude wants to empower him, because part of Rezinoc's thing was to become legendary, right? And right now Rez is strong, but he's not legendary, right? And so you and I have talked, so everyone knows, my powers are going to be nigh impossible to increase, because they're already super strong, right? They're already game breaking, and you allowed that because you say that you usually allow something once, and Rezinoc will never be able to have another person like him. But I'm hoping that Deathtude's knowledge and training will be something that will help empower Rez more. And you gave us and it was really interesting. You gave us the choice to choose our difficulties for our submissions. And I was thinking, everything that, in order to become someone who's legendary, you can't take the easy path. So my submission had like 6 or 7 powers I'm going to try to develop. And Rez is ambitious, and I put hard. So if I succeed, it'll have a great reward. But if I don't, it's going to be less. And I'm going to keep trying and trying. And I think I've made the personal decision to always make my story phases difficult.
Nice.
Because it will really show everyone that, you know, if you fail it, you know, you don't get the results you were quite looking for. But if you succeed, you know, you're going to have a great reward because you had to beat a certain difficulty. So I'm hoping that we see Rez develop into a more powerful, slightly caring person.
Okay, so that's Rez. And when you said, so you're really going to try to get GT involved in this?
Oh, GT will happen, D. It just depends on who else is going to join. We talk daily, man. And so the idea is Rez and Nam are going to start. Mare and Jer are already connected via Atlas. Rezinoc remembers, because we were all in the void, remembers Atlas and Jeremiah. So at some point he'll end up seeking him out. The biggest, and with Jer comes Mare, or Myra. I call her Mare Dare. But with Jeremiah comes Myra. And I think the hardest one's going to be Makai. Him and I have been trying to see how we're even going to meet and connect. But once that happens, that relationship will start to develop. And then we'll have the core of GT. And one of the ambitions in growing with Deftude and Nam and Drav is to maybe over time convince Drav and Deftude that it is a benefit to become part of an organization like GT. Because, you know, Rez is overall going to try to control Gamma Haven. But he needs a powerful backing. And GT is going to be strong. And if you can get Drav, he's wild as fuck and already has his own criminal organization started. And Deftude can really empower everybody behind the scenes to make them all stronger. So there's some thinking involved in that. But yeah, no, GT is going to happen. Like, we are already going to start working on coordinating story phases to get relationships built.
Nice. That's like a bona fide faction right there, man. Really working behind the scenes in the shadows.
I'm excited because there's a lot of villains you introduced, and we all want to rule, and so it'll be interesting to see if we can all gang up under one flag to try to make some big thing happen.
Did you have any questions at all for me about anything?
Actually, a couple.
Shoot.
These just came off the top of my head. One, your Kothing character. Can we get a glimpse of him?
Oh man,
because you've been talking hype about you joining this game. And you're like, Makai, let's make an alliance, and who's all joining me because we're gonna rule the world. So what kind of devious character are you cooking up?
I'll say this: he is not to be messed with. He is an X Factor.
Oh,
okay, he's an X Factor.
Okay. Dude, I'm looking forward to it. Okay. And one last question. This is just kind of for me. What kind of direction are you looking to take with these new main story for the characters? So, from my understanding, it'll be a focal point around the 5 major characters, which I believe are Anarchy, R-Type, Makai, Nam, and myself. Right? And you're talking about how everyone else will be kind of wrapped around that and we'll be able to see people. I guess I'm curious as to how you plan on implementing that, because it's going to be hard to try to wrap certain people around stories. I mean, I've been trying to think about it, and I'm like, clearly D has a plan, because I can't think for the life of me how some of the characters will interact with each other. Like, I can see some connections, right? Like Nam and Drab and Rez and Deftude, and then Ivan and Makai are connected in certain ways, and Anarchy has the Survey Day, and R-Type has Gate with Tempest, right? Like some various connections, but there you have to admit there are some outlying characters that are going to be somewhat more difficult to write in with those 5 focal points. So what's kind of your, without going super deep, because I don't want to know your whole process, I want like just surface level thoughts, like what are you thinking as far as melding all of these stories together goes?
I'm thinking I'm going to have a lot of fun. It's a puzzle to me. It's a puzzle, and I love it. I love it. It is so satisfying when I figure it out, and you're going to see like next level intertwining here. It's going to be seamless.
That's what I like to hear. Seamless. So if there is a seam, we're obviously allowed to rip it apart and give you a hard time, right? Because writing for 30 people is fairly easy to make it all flow together.
Yeah, feel free to do that. I want to take the approach of if you find a loophole, it's better to try to justify it than to point it out. So if you find a loophole, think of something that makes sense for that to have happened. I forget what that term is called, but either Marvel or DC did it a long time ago in their comic books, a long time ago. In the back of the comic, they would say if you find some issue with continuity or some kind of error or loophole, they would actually reward you for pointing it out.
Oh,
for finding loopholes in their story. And then they realize, why do we want people to point out the negatives? We're going to mess up. We're going to slip up somewhere. Why do we want people to point out the negatives? How about we reward them for instead coming up with something that justifies why that happened instead? And then that becomes, what it is. And I was like, wow, that's really genius, because it gets the people to kind of start coming up with a bunch of fan theories and their own theories as to why something happened to explain something.
I think that'd be fun to start, like a fan theory, or like a theory section in the Discord. Like, hey, why do you guys think this happened? That'd be really cool. It's like a coffee and a like Gamma Haven in a Village theory section, where players can just kind of give their thoughts on what's happening, and that'll get people talking more about it, which would be really sweet. I always like it when the community's bumping, right? Like when the new blood comes in and everyone's chatting, and then we get to that point in time where we're all like, okay, when's the next episode coming out, right? And we all get real quiet in the Discord. So I'd be looking forward to something like that for more interactivity.
Yeah, that would be tight. A little theory channel. That would be tight.
And then one last thing before we bounce, because again, you're dying. Shout out to everyone who doesn't have the Anchor app yet. I definitely think you guys should get it, because it enables you guys to shoot us questions or interject, or even sometimes be a part of these major conversation interviews. And this is a good way to tie the community together and let everyone get their thoughts out and be heard and give your 2 cents in a more fun format than just typing and reading. So I definitely think Anchor's a good platform to do that on.
Yeah, it's a great platform, and I definitely want to thank you for utilizing it. I hope to have you on here more. I want to do more podcasts off the cuff. I want to have more conversations with people in between the downtime. So if you want to ask any question about the game, if you want to talk about anything, video games, role-playing games, if we can link it, if we can tie it and make it relevant to role-playing, because that's what this platform is all about, is role-playing. Definitely call in, ask any questions about your character, and give us some topics. Hey, Rezinoc, I really appreciate you, man, because you definitely are a champion for this Anchor app. And I want to get you back on here when I'm feeling better, because I feel really bad. Figuratively, and like I literally feel bad. So we definitely got to do this again.
Oh yeah, man, hit me up anytime.
Awesome.